So one of the biggest reasons why MMA exploded in the early 90s was because for the first time ever, every major martial art like boxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, kickboxing, Jiu-Jitsu, and so many more were all thrown into one sport. It was so successful because everyone wanted to know which martial art would come out on top. But fast forward 30 years and MMA has evolved into a sport where elite fighters can blend every discipline seamlessly. But even in this era of complete, well-rounded athletes, some fighters utilize their base martial art discipline so well, they have showcased their skill set successfully at the highest level to show both dominating and entertaining performances, and some have even utilized their skill set to become the best in the world. So today, we are breaking down the best UFC fighters in every major martial arts discipline, and let's kick it off with the best boxer in the UFC. And when it comes to pure boxing and MMA, Ilia Topuria is in a class of his own. He has absolute nuclear bombs in both of those hands, and what makes it terrifying is that it's built almost entirely on perfect boxing fundamentals. He's got a tight guard, he's got his hands positioned perfectly, he's got flawless balance, and zero wasted movement when he's on the attack. He never overthrows, he never squares himself up to get tagged, and always drives through his punches with his hips. He became a 2-division UFC champion almost exclusively with those hands. Ilia Topuria uses traditional boxing combinations better than anyone in MMA right now. He uses his jab to break the opposition's rhythm. He uses the lead left hooks to the body to absolutely fold his opponents like fucking lawn chairs, and he throws overhands and hooks upstairs to end fights brutally. And on top of that, more technically, he controls the distance with his head movement, uses good subtle foot positioning, and he has elite timing on his striking. And unlike most MMA fighters who cut their combinations at 3 to 4 strikes, Ilia Topuria routinely throws 7 to 8 punch combinations without losing structure or balance to completely overwhelm and end his opponents. And the statistics really do back that up. He's got 6 brutal knockouts in 9 UFC fights. He's got nearly 5 significant strikes landed per minute, and also has a 91% takedown defense, allowing him to keep fights standing and utilize that boxing. And we've seen this repeatedly against top opposition. He picked Josh Emmett apart with a jab-heavy approach. He slipped his power shots and punished him with long combinations. He also cut off the cage perfectly against Alexander Volkanovski, which is not easy to do. He then pressured him into the cage and finished him with a devastating multi-punch sequence that won him that belt. And then he goes against Max Holloway, timing his movement perfectly, catching him between resets and L steps as well, and just finishes him with a clean hook. And then against Charles Oliveira, most recently, he stepped into the pocket, rotated through those hips to land a perfect tight knockout hook to take Charles Oliveira's head off. Ilia just has such an evolved boxing game. Ilia uses shoulder rolls, he uses slips, he resets effectively, and coaches around the sport do widely regard him as the best boxer in MMA today, and honestly, it's bloody hard to argue with otherwise from what he has displayed. But when it comes to the runner-up for the boxing discipline, I've got to give Petr Yan the nod here. Look, Ilia Topuria is the best offensive boxer in MMA, but Petr Yan is definitely the best defensive boxer. He's got a really tight high guard, he's got great shoulder checks when the opponent's moving forward, and he's got elite counter timing, making him one of the hardest fighters in the sport to hit, and he is very good offensively as well anyway. He definitely deserves the runner-up position. Now for the best kickboxer in the UFC, this one is almost self-explanatory here. Alex Pereira entered the UFC as one of the most accomplished kickboxers to ever transition to MMA. He was a 2-division glory champion, fighting at the absolute highest level of pure striking, and that kickboxing resume speaks for itself. He went 33-7 as a professional kickboxer, with 21 of those wins being knockouts, and he's translated that skill set directly into MMA, dominating in his division. In the UFC, he's become a 2-division champion. He's got 8 KO TKOs in 12 fights, and he lands over 5 significant strikes per minute with a 62% strike accuracy, which is elite at championship level in the UFC. Pereira has been able to show this, especially at such an older age, by being an extremely economical striker. He rarely overthrows, he never rushes for a finish either, and almost never gets caught out of position, because because he uses teeps, low kicks, and jabs very well as both rangefinders and of course weapons themselves. But once he has his reads and he's got that distance, we know he absolutely destroys people with his kickboxing. We've seen it repeatedly. He got the head kick finish against Yuri Prochazka, timing his guard dropping. He had perfect kickboxing range timing against Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree in his reign with uppercuts and body shots just crippling them both. And on top of that, he even handed Israel Adesanya his first middleweight loss, taking his title away from him as one of the best strikers to ever exist in MMA in general. But speaking of Adesanya, he's definitely the runner-up here for good reason. I mean, is he compared to Alex Pereira in his prime? Definitely faster, more versatile, and arguably did have more tools. Definitely better feints, definitely better switch stance attacks, and just elite distance manipulation with his kickboxing at prime. But as both fighters have aged in today's age, Pereira's power and efficiency have definitely proven to be more effective, especially in high-stake championship moments where Israel Adesanya, unfortunately, just isn't near it where Alex Pereira is. Now, looking at the Muay Thai discipline, and when it comes to implementing true Muay Thai into MMA using the 8 limbs, Rafael Fiziev is the gold standard of this discipline. He trains out of Tiger Muay Thai in Phuket, Thailand, and with that, Fiziev built nearly a 50-fight Muay Thai career going 39-8, and he's carried that experience and those tools seamlessly into MMA. He lands close to 5 significant strikes per minute, he connects on over 50% of his strikes. His Muay Thai is honestly just so complete. He utilizes body kicks, low kicks, switch kicks, teeps, clinch knees, clinch elbows, the whole shebang. Against Rafael dos Anjos, he used those switch kicks to halt his forward pressure. Against Brad Riddell, he chopped his legs to bits and his body to bits as well to make sure he could set up that spinning head kick from hell. And then against Justin Gaethje, he neutralized the leg kicks of Gaethje early by catching and returning those of his own. That's very typical Muay Thai. And then against Mark Chikaze, he disrupted the rhythm with clinch strikes and knees. But overall, Fiziev doesn't just throw Muay Thai techniques, he just integrates them so intelligently, better than almost anyone has before in an MMA landscape. So he definitely gets the top spot here, but in terms of a runner-up, I've got to give that to Carlos Prates here. He's got that traditional Muay Thai posture, he's got the long kicks, he's got the devastating knees to the body, and the spinning elbows from hell. But Fiziev's consistency at a high level, and with that fight IQ, does put him on top over Carlos Prates at this point in time. Now for the karate discipline, karate in MMA definitely isn't about volume and just overrunning your opponent.
Bang, man! I want to do that, man. Let me bro.
It's about precision, timing, and distance control, and nobody embodies that better than Michael Venom Page in this current era. While to be fair, MVP didn't start strictly in traditional karate, he does have a background in kung fu and point fighting, but those disciplines translate perfectly into karate-based principles. You utilize a bladed stance, you utilize linear movement, very much like a hit and move attack and get out of the way, utilizing those explosive blitzes, which he does perfectly. He's almost always bladed, he maximizes his speed and his reach, and fences with his lead leg. He uses the side kicks, he uses teeps, he uses lead leg round kicks, that's just to name a few, and his output is low. He has under 2.5 significant strikes per minute, but with his over 60% strike accuracy, it just makes him a sniper, and a karate style fighter is basically trained to be that style of fighter, a low output, high accuracy striker. And we've seen it with MVP clearly against Kevin Holland, against Jared Cannonier, and even Ian Gary. MVP just controls that void between fighters better than almost anyone in the sport, and arguably could be the best at it, just tagging his opponents so fast as they enter range and exiting before those counters can be thrown. We've seen it in literally every single fight. He doesn't rely on any long combinations, he just relies on clean scoring shots, which is karate at its core. Now overall for a runner-up though, it could be controversial as Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is the obvious runner-up here, which people may believe stylistically he should be number one, because he does have that Kempo karate karate base, lateral movement, wide stance. We know that Wonder Boy is one of the most unique and talented strikers from a karate base in UFC history, but MVP utilizes karate-based tools against higher level opposition now and has clearly found more success than Thompson in today's age. Now, looking at the Taekwondo-based discipline, Taekwondo is heavily based on using dynamic techniques that use a heavy kick-based approach. And we know Yair Rodriguez is the most iconic Taekwondo-based striker in the UFC still to this day. A black belt who started training just at 5 years old, we know Yair has got those tools, and we've seen it on display. He's used spinning kicks, he uses hook kicks, flying techniques, lead leg side kicks, and the list just bloody goes on. But he maintains a high output while utilizing these heavy techniques, landing nearly 5 significant strikes per minute while constantly threatening from unpredictable angles. We've seen it against Korean Zombie, we've seen it against Jeremy Stevens, we've seen it against Patricio Pitbull most recently, and Brian Ortega, and that's all of his high level opposition, even with BJ Penn as well as that, who was one of the best in the world. Compared to other fighters, he's just so unique in MMA. He uses open stance kicking, he uses those angle changes very effectively, and ultimately from a Taekwondo discipline, Yair leads with kicks and exits with punches. He just blends Taekwondo with that MMA based game seamlessly. So there's really no argument against him being the best here. It's pretty much crystal clear. But when it comes to a runner-up, there are honestly very few Taekwondo specialists in MMA, especially in men's divisions, which is why I really just don't have a clear runner-up. Hey guys, I just got to stop the video right here because this is editor Callum from the future, and I'm just stopping the video now because I have actually got the Taekwondo runner-up, which I don't know how I didn't have through the planning or recording of this video, but it is definitely Natalia Silva. She's 7-0 in the UFC. She's used a Taekwondo-based style with very dynamic striking to outwork every single one of her opponents in the UFC. She is pretty much ready for a title shot right now. She is looking fantastic, and that is all thanks to her Taekwondo base. She's super dynamic, super fast, uses those good lead leg strikes. She is definitely the runner-up for the Taekwondo discipline. But now moving on to the grappling-based areas, and we're kicking it off with the king of disciplines. Wrestling is easily argued as one of the best bases for MMA, no question, and we have seen it shine through as a discipline for many long-serving champions, but for pure wrestling as a primary weapon at its best, belongs to Khamzat Chimaev. His entire game is built on overwhelming positional dominance. When Khamzat shoots, he expects to get the takedown, and most of the time he just runs straight through his opponent, almost as fast as Tracy Cortez runs through boyfriends in the UFC. But looking back at Chimaev and his tools within the wrestling discipline, his greatest weapon isn't actually his strength, which is definitely impressive. It's actually his entry speed on his takedowns and his overall chain wrestling. We've seen that flawlessly against Li Jingliang, against Kevin Holland, against Robert Whittaker, against Gilbert Burns, a great jiu-jitsu artist, against Kamaru Usman, controlling him like no one had ever seen before, and of course Dricus du Plessis most recently, absolutely annihilating him with control time to claim that rightful title. And going more in depth to his success on that, once he is on top, he doesn't allow any scrambles, he doesn't allow the opposition to move, he's always advancing positions and just gaining ridiculous amounts of control time overall because he's just one step ahead of every single opponent when it comes to that ground game. He's so good at pinning his opponents, out transitioning them, hunting those finishes, he's hunting those submissions, trying to take the back. He is relentless, and it bloody works. Now, when it comes to a runner-up though, this is where it's the most competitive. Now, Islam Makhachev for me is the runner-up here, and you could argue Merab as well, but Islam Makhachev is more well-rounded, he is more technical, but when it comes to raw wrestling pressure, nobody overwhelms opponents like Khamzat Chimaev. Now, moving on to wrestling's cousin, we have the Sambo discipline, and combat Sambo in particular blends wrestling, blends judo, submissions, and striking all together, and Islam Makhachev is the perfect embodiment of that. Islam Makhachev is a combat Sambo world champion for starters. He chains takedowns, trips, and throws effortlessly, and that is what you need in Sambo, and once on top, he immediately hunts those submissions. He hunts arm triangles, he hunts Darce chokes, back takes for rear nakeds. The guy is dangerous in all positions, and that is what is displayed at the height of the combat Sambo discipline. We've seen his Sambo come to light against elite grapplers, elite wrestlers, and elite strikers. He has outworked Arman Tsarukyan. He has dominated Renato Moicano, finding submissions over a submission artist. He's dominated Charles Oliveira with great clinch control, utilizing judo, top control, and then submitting him. And then, of course, Jack Della Maddalena, utilizing judo base and wrestling base combined as a hybrid, which Sambo offers, to absolutely dominate Jack Della Maddalena to claim his second title. And more into that, Islam Makhachev doesn't just take you down. He absolutely drowns you, neutralizing your best weapons and forcing mistakes like all of the opposition I just mentioned. And as the Sambo discipline presents as the most well-rounded style, it's pretty hard to argue that Islam Makhachev is not the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC today. And this is really flipping the script from wrestling, because Khamzat Chimaev is a razor close runner-up here, as he actually does have a Sambo base himself, has great wrestling and submission threats, but we are yet to see the full evolution of his striking, which is utilized in Sambo, and Islam's broader submission arsenal, and most importantly his striking fluency, give him the edge in the Sambo discipline. Now moving on to the judo discipline, and judo as a discipline is based on the ability to use the opposition's weight against them, using unorthodox techniques compared to the traditional takedowns from wrestling. And those unorthodox techniques include hip tosses, trips, and throws. And this discipline is heavily dominated by women's MMA. So this pick may be controversial to a few of you, but coming out on top is Islam Makhachev. He constantly uses inside trips, outside trips, foot sweeps, hip throws, hip tosses. We saw it clearly against Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan. And aside from Ronda Rousey, he's adapted judo to the peak level of MMA and has found so much success from it. His Sambo-based style and his wrestling overall really overshadows that unique judo actual style he does have. And that has been a key to many of his victories. Now, as the runner-up in a clear second place, which could potentially be considered first, is Kayla Harrison, as her judo pedigree is obviously undeniable, but Islam has just proven that judo works at the highest level of MMA consistently year after year after year over someone like Kayla Harrison, who is still fairly new in the UFC against the top pedigree in the sport. Now finally we have the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu discipline, and to finish things off, Charles Oliveira is the greatest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist in UFC history, translating into MMA. Charles Oliveira has 17 submission wins, which is the most ever in the UFC, which just clearly labels him as a world-class black belt. He is deadly from guard, he's deadly from top control, he's deadly from bloody everywhere. He's got the most dynamic arsenal of submissions MMA has ever seen, no question. He's got fluid transitions between positions. He's an absolute menace from every single one of those positions. He controls the back, he's great at backpacking, he's great from the guard, and is great at nullifying ground and pound, utilizing omoplatas and utilizing sweeps to then hunt submissions as well. And he's been able to utilize such a dangerous guard to completely shut out top wrestlers from transitioning effectively and even submitting them, utilizing guillotines, like Kevin Lee, who's a D1 wrestler, got subbed, and almost submitted Arman Tsarukyan as well by pulling him into his guard at UFC 300. So he's clearly never worried about being out controlled by a wrestler with how dangerous his submission tools are. And you can even see how well he eclipses other submission artists and scramblers like Tony Ferguson, who's a 10th planet black belt and almost ripped his arm off with an armbar. And then against Mateusz Gamrot most recently, out transitioning and being the first to finish him with a rear naked choke. But not only that, we've seen that against other elite competition like Dustin Poirier, who's a BJJ black belt, and Jim Miller, who is also a BJJ black belt, eclipsing them completely, submitting them both. And Charles has hit 7 different types of submissions against some of the greatest fighters in lightweight and featherweight there too. He is the blueprint of how a BJJ artist should transition into MMA. Now finally, looking at the runner-up, and I think the pure dominance has spoken for itself when it comes to his transitional capabilities and his pure aggression as champion to go and hunt a submission finish. Alexandre Pantoja is the runner-up here, especially with his 6 submission wins, defending his title dominantly against Kai Kara-France and Kai Asakura, but no one has really been able to completely outwork him on the ground. He's just so damn dominant with his grinder-based style style that stems from that BJJ base, with his grappling based transitions, knowing exactly where he needs to be to find the submission and drown out his opponent. Now, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and please tell me down below if you would change any of these top fighters in any of these disciplines, or the runner-ups as well. I'd be definitely interested to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't already, definitely just check out the video here on the screen, and please like, comment, subscribe. It goes a long way for the channel. I've been really enjoying this through the past couple of years. Thank you for all the support, and I'll hope to catch you in the next one.